Pledge of allegiance, please.
No, it's only on.
Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Wasn't quite as endearing as last night's rendition of the national anthem. But. Okay. We shall do the roll call next.
Osborne,
Here.
Bentley,
Here.
Lund,
Here.
Euler,
Here.
Kushner.
Here, approval of the minutes from January 23rd.
Move to approve.
Osborne,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes. Adoption of the agenda.
Move to adopt.
Osborne,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes,
Thank you.
we have one proclamation. Would you like to? No?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll let you.
Huh?
You got it.
You're
Come
the
on.
only one who made it today.
Oh. How you gonna take your own picture? Cause you can go.
I'll be up there. I'll be up there.
Okay, Black History Month, February 2023 for the city of Warrensburg. Whereas in observance of Black History Month, the city of Warrensburg celebrates the legacy of African Americans whose pursuit of equality in all aspects of American life and relentless determination to overcome seemingly insurmountable barriers has helped our city, state, and nation to become a fairer, more just society. And whereas during Black History Month, we recognize the numerous long-lasting achievements and contributions African Americans have made on our cultural, economic, and political development. And whereas the city of Warrensburg reaffirms our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion as bedrock principles that create a wholesome, radiant, and flourishing community. And whereas the city of Warrensburg acknowledges the historical injustices and unlawful and abhorrent persecution faced by Black and African American people through targeted racial discrimination, intimidation, and violence, all methods which run counter to the core values of the city, state, and nation. And whereas the city of Warrensburg resolves to remain steadfast in our efforts to uproot any unfair and racist practices and continue to work towards becoming a fair and righteous city that respects and embraces all citizens. And whereas Black History Month provides the opportunity for citizens of the city of Warrensburg to reflect on the tragedy of the past, celebrate differences of culture, and work towards creating more inclusive community by combating racism, living up to the most sacred of American values, and all people are created equal. And whereas the city of Warrensburg is proud to honor the legacy of contributions of African Americans in our community throughout our state and nation. Now, therefore, I, Jim Kushner, Mayor, along with the City Council of the city of Warrensburg, Missouri, do hereby proclaim the month of February 2023 as Black History Month.
Thank you. And I just want to say real quick, I just want to thank our new chair of the board for the Diversity Inclusion Commission, Noemi Royale, who wrote this for us. She did a lot of work and we talked about it, and a lot of heart went into this. So I just want to appreciate it. So thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Okay, no, 6.1 is a public hearing on an ordinance repealing or replacing ordinance 5524 of the city of Warrensburg, Missouri regarding marijuana related uses.
Mayor and City Council, we've talked about this in a couple meetings now. The Planning and Zoning Commission considered the ordinance in front of you last week at their meeting. Staff has put in front of you an ordinance that changes our current ordinance definitions related to marijuana use. Primarily, what it does is eliminate the word medical and start to group whether it's medical or recreational or micro business. Just classify them as dispensary, manufacturing facility, transportation facility, in those more general categories. So the definitions in your current ordinance would change and bring those in line with state laws that were approved with Amendment 3 in November of 2022. Then we have allowed them in the same districts and in the same manner, either zoned by right or conditional use permit, as those medical facilities were. So there's been no changes to where they're allowed in terms of zoning districts or the structure of zone by right, conditional use permit, or not allowed at all. That has not changed. There is a red line version of the ordinance in your packet so that you can see specifically what language we're adding and deleting from your current ordinance. And then the parking requirement has changed, has stayed the same. We've not provided any change to that. And then you come to the last part of the ordinance, which is the location restrictions. And what you have in the proposed ordinance is the exact same as current ordinance. So that is the state's requirement plus the additional requirements that City Council adopted for the city of Warrensburg in 2019. So those did not change. We did not propose a change to that. When planning and zoning considered this ordinance last week, they talked about whether or not they wanted to propose any buffer changes, any location changes. And ultimately, they voted not to change anything and recommended approval as written. And so that is the version we've put in front of you as well. They stated that recommendation in their written recommendation to you. So as a body this evening, you have all options in front of you. You can amend. Anybody could offer an amendment to the current ordinance. And the easiest way to do that would be to recommend to delete text. So, tell us which subsection or multiple subsections, whichever that would be in the motion you make. So if an amendment is presented, then council would vote on the amendment. And if it's successful, then you would vote on the amended ordinance. So all of those options are available to you this evening. Staff has recommended that no changes be made to the buffer requirements, and that was the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission last week. Trying to check here. We did provide in the packet the additional maps that were provided, the additional information that was provided to this body. And we also discussed it at the January meetings. The Planning Commission had not seen that until last week. So we had some discussion of it in their meeting. I'd be happy to answer any questions about that, but I know you have seen that information before. Staff would recommend approval as submitted. Be happy to answer any questions.
Motion? Oh, I'm sorry, no.
No.
The public hearing, anybody have any comments?
Thank you.
Doug, you checked, correct?
There's not a specific sign-up sheet for this, but it didn't appear anyone.
Okay. Gary, anything?
I
Okay,
didn't know how the council felt about removing the buffer for the liquor by drink.
Jody, let's go ahead and read the ordinance and then we'll have discussion.
So moving to 7.1. You want me to read it? Okay. An ordinance repealing and replacing ordinance 5524 of the city of Warrensburg, Missouri regarding marijuana related uses.
Now we can have discussion.
Oh, sorry.
That's right.
Just people's opinion on removing that buffer zone for the liquor by drink that we currently have on.
I can say we had quite a discussion about this on planning and zoning. And when you look at the maps in there, it really doesn't change much at all. It wasn't worth the change at this time, so we left it as it was. And we discussed this quite a bit about this. So.
All the discussion was related to downtown, which is removed from that discussion due to the churches. So.
So as far as other locations, like, for instance, any buildings out by like Applebee's or anything other than downtown that has a restaurant that serves liquor by the drink, we would just go ahead and lump that into the exclusionary area.
As it is today, yeah. But if you look at the maps, there's areas in that area that somebody could open up an establishment out there in that area without affecting the 250-foot exclusion that we've got today.
Isn't there also a section or a opportunity in there in case somebody can appeal if they've been turned down due to the distance?
No, there is no appeal process. They would have to apply for a variance, and the standard for granting a variance is that you've been denied all reasonable use of the property due to the ordinances of the city or the physical conditions of the property. And so that's gonna be that's not highest and best use. So all reasonable use means any use under the
Okay.
sun, not just you've been denied the use as a dispensary. So I think that's a high bar for a variance to be granted. There is no other appeals process built in.
Okay. And this is also dependent on whether or not the state even issues a permit to the person wanting to open up the business, correct? Which has to come first.
Yes, the state does have to issue the license for your medical ones that want to convert to recreational. If you do not adopt something tonight that changes your definitions, then you would not be allowing recreational at all. Because your definitions right now do not include recreational.
Okay,
So if you don't do something tonight to at least change the definitions, your existing medical cannot legally, under the city's rules, convert to recreational.
okay. Anybody, anything else? Do you have a motion? Was that under a motion, Doug, that he brought up?
Just discussion.
Just discussion?
Yeah.
Okay. And that was the first reading, correct?
Mhm.
So do you need to vote or?
Move to pass said ordinance to second reading by title.
Okay. Osborne,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes.
Okay. This is an ordinance repealing and replacing ordinance 5524 of the city of Warrensburg, Missouri regarding marijuana related uses. This would be for adoption or rejection. Osborne,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, that was 6-1, 7-1,
7-2.
7-2.
Mhm.
First and second reading of ordinance amending certain provisions of Article 9 of Chapter 14 regarding drug offenses.
This is 14 or 28.
14.
14.
Had my packet memos mixed up in my pile. Thank you, Mayor and City Council. Along the same lines of the conversation we just had regarding our zoning ordinances, following the passage of Amendment 3. Amendment 3, legalizing recreational marijuana in the state of Missouri. These changes to our Chapter 14 are necessary to be in compliance with those new requirements. Specifically, this provision is amending the categorized drug offense violations as civil penalties and not as criminal offenses.
In addition, this does provide us with the ability to enforce the state restriction on possession by persons under 21. Previously, it was illegal to possess at all, and so we've not been able to address that under 21 provision in the absence of this new one.
Motion for this one?
Move to pass that ordinance the second reading by title.
Okay. Osborne,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes.
An ordinance of the city of Warrensburg amending certain provisions of Article 9 of Chapter 14 of the Code of Ordinances regarding drug offenses. This is for adoption or rejection. Osborne,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes. Okay, 7.3. First and second reading of ordinance amending section 2850 regarding the use of marijuana in public.
Yes, again, following amendment 3 of the legalization of recreational marijuana in the state of Missouri. This revision to section 2850 is prohibits the use of marijuana in public. And then again, it also changes the category from a civil to a civil penalty instead of a criminal offense. So these changes are in compliance with the new requirements.
Okay, another motion, please. Go
Well,
ahead.
actually, I do have a question. When you say in public, what does that mean?
So.
I mean, certainly not walking down the street. But what if someone is in their backyard?
Public is defined in other places in that chapter to mean a location to which the public has access.
Okay,
So it would be business locations to which public has access, public right of ways, parking lots, parks, things of that nature. Private yards would not be included.
okay, thank you.
Okay, need a motion still?
Go ahead.
Move to pass that ordinance the second reading by title.
Osborne,
Yes,
Bentley,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes.
Okay, an ordinance of the city of Warrensburg, section 28-50 of the Code of Ordinances regarding use of marijuana in public. This is for adoption or rejection. Osborne,
yes,
Bentley,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes. Okay, next is first and second reading of ordinance affirming section 22-92 levied and 22-94 no automatic increases.
Okay.
By you.
Mhm. So this city of Warrensburg is in receipt of a notice by the Missouri Public Service Commission of a rate increase that was approved to Spire, Missouri LLC. The approval was over the 7% mark, and in the state of Missouri, there is a state statute that says notice must be given, and the cities have to adjust their gross receipts tax rates. Unless, as we adopted by ordinance 1512 in 1968, first, we set our 6% business license tax on gross receipts. And then secondly, on March 25th in 2013, we adopted for no automatic adjustments as in response to that state statute. So what is presented tonight, we recommend adopting this ordinance to tie a bow basically around our no automatic adjustment ordinance, specifically in response to this Public Service Commission notice for Spire. Any questions?
Oh, all sorts of them. So they
Sure.
put through an increase that we have an ordinance against allowing them.
So we adopted an ordinance in 2013 that was a blanket ordinance. So that we do not have to adjust our rates based on a Missouri Public Service Commission approving utility rates.
The state statute that was adopted that the council acted upon in 2013 was essentially like a mini Hancock amendment. That said, well, if the gas rates go up, your franchise rates don't get to go up, you have to roll your rates back, so the amount of money that you're collecting is identical. Unless you pass an ordinance that says your tax rate is going to be based on whatever the actual stream of gas revenue is. And so the city in 2013 adopted that ordinance to say we are going to allow our gross receipts to travel with whatever the stream of revenue is from gas sales. And this is just an ordinance reaffirming that.
Okay,
Otherwise, you're essentially rolling back your tax rate every time Public Service Commission approves a rate increase.
we do that enough now. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And a motion, please, for the gas. Okay,
Motion to approve that ordinance, second reading by title.
Okay. Osborne,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Kushner.
yes,
Okay. An ordinance affirming sections 2292 levied and 2294 no automatic adjustments of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Warrensburg, Missouri, upon receipt of notice under section 393 .275 revised statutes of Missouri, utility rate increase in the matter of Spire, Missouri, Inc., Missouri Public Service Commission, file number GR 2022-0179. This is for adoption or rejection. Osborne,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Kushner.
yes. 7.5. First and second reading of an ordinance, amending chapter 8 of the Code of Ordinances regarding municipal court.
Council, we shared with you all last month that we had a auditor from the Office of the State Court Administrator. They were coming in to make sure that we are meeting all the requirements that have been established through the Show Me Courts system and all the other regulations that are set forth. Through that audit, we received great remarks. However, there were a few suggestions that we needed to update some of our codes to match what our current practice is. So we are in compliance. We received great remarks from the auditor. However, they did recommend that we do bring some of these old codes up to what the new requirements are and what we are actually doing in practice. I will refer to City Attorney Harris for any specific questions related to what was required and what those ordinances were and what those current practices are. So.
Basically updating.
Has to do with some court costs that have not been collected for some time based on some court decisions. Practices have been immediately kept in compliance with state law, but the ordinances didn't get updated as the practices were being updated.
Oh, okay. Motion for,
Move to approve that ordinance, second reading by title.
Osborne,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Kushner.
yes,
An ordinance amending chapter 8 of the Code of Ordinances regarding municipal court. This is for adoption or rejection. Osborne,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Kushner.
yes.
Thank you.
Okay, 7.6, first and second reading of ordinance approving a minor plat of Alex's Edition 707, 715 ETL.
This is a minor plat that the applicant, MFM Capital, has submitted for the property located at 707 and 715 East Young Street. This land is just east of the former Sears Building, the Baker's Armory location, and is currently undeveloped land. It does exist as two platted lots at the moment, and this minor plat would readjust those two interior lot lines to still keep it at two lots, but they'll be in different shapes. On the north end of the second lot, there are some existing easements that exist prior to this plat being approved. They were approved at various times with former plats in the past by separate instrument. There are ingress egress easements through the parking lots there that service several of those businesses back there. The Farm Bureau, Johnson County Community Health, the daycare, several of those. Main reason for the plat is that the second lot, lot 2, with this, the second lot has 50 feet of frontage. The daycare has indicated some interest in changing the footprint of their project, their improvements. And so to do that, they would need to have frontage on a city street, and that north-south access that runs there on the west side of the Legion building, between the Legion and the Water Doctor, that is not a public street. And so this would give them access to a public street. There are a couple more pieces to the puzzle that might come forward in future months for that to happen, but this is the first step on that path for them to be able to redevelop their property and make some improvements. So staff requested several corrections from the applicant and the surveyor. They made all of those changes. The manner in which they made a couple of them prompted 3 new issues. And so staff has recommended approval with those 3 conditions. They've been incorporated into the ordinance, and the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval with those same conditions at their meeting last Monday. Be happy to answer any questions.
Move to pass said ordinance to second reading by title.
Osborne,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes.
An ordinance approving and accepting the minor plat of Alex's Addition, a subdivision in the city of Warrensburg, Missouri, located at 707 and 715 East Young Street. This is for adoption or rejection. Osborne,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes. Okay, 7-7. First and second reading of ordinance approving a final plat of Southwest Estates lots 12A and 13A at 323 and 325 Jones Avenue.
This is a minor plat located in Southwest Estates on Jones Avenue. It involves 2 properties and would have moved the interior lot line between those 2 properties. In reviewing the plat, there was a substantial list of items that needed to be corrected. 2 of those posed more challenges than others. And ultimately, the applicant indicated they did not want to move forward. Staff did not, after requesting that in writing, receive that in writing. And so once the plat process begins, we must see it through to the end. And so by ordinance, and so staff has recommended that this plat not be approved. The ordinance that you have in front of you is written in the affirmative. And so upon second reading, staff would recommend that no vote be cast by each member. Planning and Zoning Commission considered this at their meeting last week and did not recommend approval of the plat. You have that written finding in front of you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So we want to vote yes to pass to second reading and then vote no on the item itself.
Exactly.
Move to pass said ordinance to second reading by title.
Osborne,
No.
Yes, first.
Oh, yes. Yes, sorry. It's confusing.
it is Bentley,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes.
Okay. An ordinance approving and accepting the final plat of Southwest Estates lots 12A and 13A, a subdivision in the city of Warrensburg, Missouri, located at 323 and 325 Jones Avenue. This is for adoption or rejection. Osborne,
No, and don't try to change my mind.
Bentley,
No.
Lund,
No.
Euler,
No.
Kushner.
No.
Motion failed.
First and second reading of an ordinance authorizing write-off of bad debt for sewer accounts in the city of Warrensburg, Missouri.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you this evening is a listing of accounts that have been tried to be collected. So the process is with utility billing is you get your sewer bill. you choose to pay your sewer bill and you go on with your sewer services. If you choose not to pay your sewer bill, we cut your sewer off. And, you either move or pay your bill somewhere along the line. You've chosen not to pay your sewer bill and you've actually moved, you no longer need those services. You still don't think you need to pay the city of Warrensburg for those services. So we've sent you to collections. We've tried to collect your money. And paid the collection agency their fee to collect your money, and we still are unable to do that. This listing is for all accounts that are 5 years old and older. Statute of limitations is 5 years in the state of Missouri, so we technically can't collect your money unless you want to have service again. So there's a significant number of these because the last time that this was done was in 2015. When the bad debt policy was actually adopted in 2015 and we took back over sewer billing. So there's some significant pieces there. We adjust the write-off, so I talk about there's what they call a contra account. So you have so much money that you plan not to collect when you have a receivable service process. And so we try to adjust those every year. So that will hit that account and some additional monies to actually expense this because these are of significant age and have already been included in that and adjusted back out of it over time. So the authorization is to eliminate these out of the books, adjust that receivable balance and that bad debt balance in turn, to write all of these accounts off because we are unable to collect this money from these previous residents.
About what's the amount approximately that we're,
This total is. I thought I told you that. 170, yeah. $172,000. And again, keep in mind, this is anything that's over, 5 years old already. And so our practice is going forward to hopefully bring this to you every year so that we only have a few accounts. I mean, and there's a significant listing of accounts here, and that includes the Southeast Sewer District. So the Southeast Sewer District, we just bill their money and collect it and pay it to the Southeast Sewer District. That's the only process we have for them. So that doesn't affect our revenues. It kind of affects the receivable balance, but not really in the mechanics of that process. So there's like $11,000 there. That's the Southeast Sewer District that they've authorized for us to write off as well. So we'll send this listing to them for their accounts.
and these are all residential or?
There's some
Mix of-
commercial pieces there as well, I believe. Most of them, if you run down through the addresses, you can see that a lot of them are apartment complexes and there's very few of them that are more than, 2 or 3, there's some that's, $200 or whatever, but that's unusual for them to get to that level as well.
Now there's deposits with this or there's,
Not to my
No.
knowledge. There's no deposit. For
should
your
that be
services.
something we consider in the future or can we?
It would be a good idea to consider something.
Thank you.
What would be the process of getting that going? Of adding a deposit?
Add a deposit, it would, it'd just be a ordinance brought forward to amend the section of code that talks about sewer billing. As we do rates and different things, it is a good opportunity actually to do that. So we make those adjustments that as a new customer, you would have a deposit that you would be required to make. And so now that would put the resident, so typically you have a deposit for your water, you have a deposit for your electric
Mhm.
and your gas. And so the sewer piece would also be that deposit.
Would that be collected by water company or by us?
The deposit would be collected by us. We would hold those deposits. And then that runs through the refund process or the applied process when you disconnect services. When it was encompassed in water in previous experiences, it was a little bit easier and you could add additional deposits when you were shut off because you were shutting off their water, so they didn't have a commodity coming into the resident. The sewer service is just that. It's just a service and it's water going out, so the logistics are a little different than when you've got a commodity, the water district, partners with us. So if they've not paid us, then the water company does go out and shut their water off. But there's not an additional charge. There's a reconnect fee that we collect because we have to pay our staff for time to go out there. But
About how long do we give them? What is there a grace period, 90 days? How far long do we?
it's a 30-day window, so you get a notice, you get 30 days,
30 days after a late.
and so, yeah, and then if you're disconnected, and it still waits another 10 to 30 days, then it's sent to the collection agency. If it's over that $25 balance. The challenge is when it's less than $25, then it's not in our best interest to send it to the collection agency to pay them a fee to try to collect something that's less than $25.
Councilmember Euler and City Council, kind of based on this conversation, I think staff will take back looking into what it would look like to set up a deposit for our sewer service, and we'll bring a recommendation back to you with additional research.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Gotta bite the bullet.
Move to pass that ordinance, the second reading by title.
Osborne,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes.
An ordinance approving the write-off of bad debt for sewer accounts in the city of Warrensburg, Missouri. This is for adoption or rejection. Osborne,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes.
Thank
Other business, number 8. Resolution approving a sports field painter tractor for Parks and Rec. Mr. Chris.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. As stated in the memo, the sports field painter will be used to paint the lines of sports fields. And this is going to reduce staff time and cost. The cost for the sports painter is $24,740, which is the lowest of 3 bids. This purchase was approved by the park board. A budget amendment for the Parks and Recreation fund balance will be presented to cover the cost of this purchase. And that's going to be at a future meeting. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Have we had one of these in the past?
We have had, it basically was held together with wire and a few other creative tasks that the park maintenance did, but it is no longer working.
Motion for the resolution, please.
Move to approve the resolution.
Osborne,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes. 8.2, resolution of purchase of a 0-turn mower for parks operations.
Yes, Mayor and council members, again, as stated in the memo, the 0-turn mowers are used to maintain the parks and sports fields. The 0-turn mower is replacing an older mower that is broken down and really high costs and repairs of ongoing maintenance. The cost for the Hustler mower is $15,908, and this is through a state bid assist program. The purchasing approved by the park board, and as stated, a budget amendment from Parks and Recreation fund balance will be in conjunction with this purchase at a future meeting. And I will answer any questions on this item.
Motion for the resolution.
Move to approve the resolution.
Osborne,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes. 8.3, resolution authorizing destruction of records. Ms. Jody.
Yes. So as council letter states, every office in city government produces many, many records. As pursuant to state retention schedules, these records that are listed on the destruction log attached to the resolution have reached their minimum retention and they're ready for disposition. City staff recommends approval of the resolution. Have any questions?
Move to approve the resolution.
Okay. Osborne,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes. Resolution, or excuse me, adopting resolution authorizing city of Warrensburg 401A plan and summary of the plan. Ms. Doolin.
Yes, good evening again, Mayor and City Council. When we went through the renewal process for our new health coverage, one of the items that we looked at was trying to incentivize individuals to move to a high deductible healthcare, qualified healthcare plan. As part of that, we wanted to be able to provide an incentive as a deposit to a health savings account. And so we wanted to give $1,000 to folks starting January 1, and then we will do another $1,500 on July 1. Just to provide if there are any of those expenses in the health savings account for folks to be able to pay for that high deductible if they need it. As part of that discussion, we do have several folks in our organization who, one, either decline our health coverage, or two, are taking on the high deductible but are not eligible for a health savings account. So as again, that incentivizing them to enroll in that high deductible plan, which ultimately saves the city money, we wanted to share some of that savings with our employees. For those folks who are not eligible for an HSA because they're enrolled in TRICARE or are covered by other Medicare, or maybe they have a spouse who has another FSA, so they're not eligible for the HSA. We would like to set up a 401A plan for the city to contribute that $2,500 over a 24 pay periods. So as part of a deduction in there, or not as a deduction, as part of their, sorry, I'm struggling getting this out. Give me a second. As part of their pay period, we would contribute about $104 per paycheck for 24 paychecks into a 401A, which offers similar tax advantages and investment opportunities as an HSA does.
And those are the ones who decline.
So this will be for ones who declined our health coverage through us, or who are on the high deductible but are not eligible for that health savings account.
Anything else? Motion then, please.
Move to approve the resolution.
Osborne,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Lund,
Yes.
Euler,
Yes.
Kushner.
Yes. 5. Convention and Visitors Bureau requests for ARPA funds. Ms. Marcy.
That's so cool.
I know.
Good.
That means you can talk as long as you want, right?
No, promise I won't.
And you're at the microphone too. Usually you're back there.
I really don't need it. Honorable Mayor, members of the council, tonight before you, you have a discussion item. When the city of Warrensburg received the ARPA funding, 70,000 was earmarked for area tourism. We are currently working on 205 North Holden, and that is going to be the home of Warrensburg Visitor Center. As we've mentioned before, the anticipated expense of renovating that purchase has come in much higher than we anticipated. We are paying for that through our fund balance. Right now, we are currently at 380,000 with the contract for renovation and our first change order. I say first, we got started January 2nd. We know there's more to come. That $70,000, if approved to go towards the renovation of 205 North Holden would be tremendous. It would allow us to furnish the property, continue our goal of making that a prominent location within our community, not only for our residents, but our visitors. But right now, we're just asking for you to discuss the approval to use the ARPA funds, the 70,000 towards the renovation of 205 North Holden.
Questions, discussions?
You would like to see pictures? I can show you on my cell phone later.
What's the anticipated opening date?
We,
You know,
Councilman Euler, right now, we're not able to say that right now. We're kind of with the supplies and seeing where we land on that, and then possibly the future change orders. The ultimate goal is to make sure the bones of the building are good. We're not able to go for the pretties right now. The pretties will come, but the bones are going to be there, and that's what we're taking care of right now. I mentioned our first change order. That is I've learned a lot about sump pumps, dehumidifiers, vapor barriers, all the above. So right now we're just taking care of that. Ultimately, you would hope by the end of 23, but we just want to make sure it's right.
how's hotel occupancy doing? That's what you live off of most.
Absolutely. We live off of that 100%. We do receive a small grant from Missouri Division of Tourism for marketing. It is a reimbursement grant. But absolutely, we operate off the lodging tax. We received the January collections. I believe we were up $61, but it was my understanding that not all the hotels had paid at that time. The deadline is the 15th of the month. So, but my board meets the second Thursday of the month. City finance is incredible and gives me preliminary numbers. So I'm able to provide that to the board, but we were $61 over, but again, we were missing a couple of hotels.
I will
Yes.
just add- oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, I guess, a question. Is 70,000 enough, or is that all that's allowed? I'm just putting it out there because.
Great conversation, Councilmember Bentley, that you do raise. When we had our original discussions about how we were going to spend our ARPA funds, tourism was one of those items that we wanted to support, and as that was one that was really hit very hard during the pandemic a few years ago. So that was, we had kind of budgeted, we budgeted 1.3 million for the public safety radio upgrades. We had some other computer equipment that was included in there for public safety. We paid for some wastewater upgrades, the blowers, we paid for that out of our ARPA funds as well, all things that were allowed. This $70,000 was just, we had originally thought we might try to use it for a grant, and we're trying to be reasonable in how we, not overwhelm Marcy trying to administer a grant. But again, as we found with some of the things we've tried to do with our community development side of things, that sub-grantee is really cumbersome, and some of that additional paperwork that the federal government's going to make us account for. We had slotted about 1 million for a stormwater project that we wanted to do. We actually received very good news from an engineer, which does not happen very often. And I think he might still be in the back of the room, so I apologize for that. But he shared with us that really that we were anticipating it to be about $1 million stormwater repair over on Creech Drive, and he says that it's actually in better shape than we originally thought. And so we might have a little bit of extra money in that area as well. Now, understand that, of course, there are other stormwater projects that we can do. We can do more than one, and there is still a lot of infrastructure work that needs to be done. But if council does see it fit to possibly raise that contribution to the visitor center, that is your all's prerogative.
You have a suggested max or?
Well, my-
I know, it is. I'm just saying, I don't want to say, well, 100,000 and then you'd be like,
It's
no.
really just an opportunity for you all to kind of discuss this and have this conversation. So if you all are interested in possibly increasing that dollar amount, we will take that, as staff, we will take that direction back. I'll sit down with Marcy, we'll have that conversation. I'll sit down with Enrico and take a look at what some of our other stormwater needs are and what some of those other things that we can use that ARPA money for, because it does have to be obligated by the end of 2024 and expended by 2026.
And this was mostly a surprise for the cellar or the basement.
Yes,
and
sir. But
found-
we knew
yeah.
we were gonna, it's a 100-year-old building. We knew,
Yeah.
we know there's gonna be future. Tremendous help from senior project manager Bill Graves and our contractor of making sure that all of those are identified prior to proceeding. That we knew that we were gonna have some issues with the moisture in the crawl space. We knew that. What that was, we didn't know. We
Mhm.
really truly didn't know, but we heard, most older buildings that don't have ventilation in the crawl space, you're gonna have some issues. But right now, like I said, we're taking care of the bones. We're making sure that that is taken care of and so that there are no future problems.
But the roof is good.
The
what do you
roof,
think?
as of right, when we had our inspection, when we purchased the property in 21, the roof, at that time, they said we had probably 5 years, 5 to 10 years. It's a flat roof.
Right.
We will have we will have a line item once we get in. Once we get in and we get our, start getting mail at our new location, that next fiscal year, we will have a budget line item for maintenance. Because we know it's coming and we want to make sure that we're prepared for that.
Marcy, have you heard back on your grant from DED?
No, we applied, you may remember, we did apply for the local tourism asset development grant. And we submitted our deadline, or by the deadline in December. DED said that they'd let us know in January. I've reached out several times. I've been told it's in the review process. They did reach out at the 1st of January and ask for additional documentation, which was promising. But I've been told that they've been overwhelmed by the number of applications received. My fingers and toes are crossed, but I also know that I'm not going to count on it. But we did try. We absolutely did try. It was for 250,000.
I think we're kind of waiting to see, what that comes back to.
Okay, do we want to, as a discussion point, or need to approve the 70 now or not, or wait?
This was just a discussion, to hear your all's thoughts on it, and so, at a later meeting, once we have solidified kind of that number and we have some discussions, we'll bring back an ordinance for you all to pass, authorizing that, transfer.
Absolutely. And if we do hear back from DED, I promise everybody downtown is going to hear.
Yeah, and then you'll pick up the phone and tell people.
Oh, it's gonna be a little bit more than that. Yes.
Okay. Anything else on Marcy's request? Okay. 8.6 illicit discharge connections.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So this is a piggyback off of our work session that we're just coming off of. So one of the things that was hinted at during the work session, but was not discussed in detail, was another root cause of why our flows are so high at our plants. So one is attributed to the organic growth that we see in the city with new subdivisions, new businesses wanting to move in. But the other part is through our inflow and infiltration, or in other words, unwanted stormwater into our sanitary sewer system. So in reviewing our data that we have, we see increases during the wet season of increases of 15 to 25%. That is at both plants, most notably at our west plant, where we already have high demand at that plant already. So for the conception of this policy is to try to come up with ways that the city can afford to start tackling our I&I. So as we all know that there is a long-standing sanitary sewer lining program that we've had and will continue to operate. Lining alone is not going to be the cure. So as we know that there's going to be spot repairs that are needed where lining will not be able to bring it back to life. We may need to start lining our manholes where there's leaking into our system or whatever the case may be. Another thing that we are starting to see and where this policy will come into play is when we camera our sewer system so we can find out where we're going to line for the next year. We do tend to find illicit connections into our mains, be it in the form of sub pump, discharge pipe, downspouts, foundation drains, whatever you can think of that would carry water is going into our system. And so the proposal with this policy is that the city would contribute up to $2,000 to get it to help the resident pay for the disconnection off of our main. And the reason for that is largely for equitable purposes. So at our West plant, we're finding that, and especially this was really helpful when we were pursuing the CDBG grant, that the vast majority of people on the west side of town fall into the low to moderate income household for salary. And so for those that may not be able to afford it, we did not want to add additional burden by shutting their water off. Once we identify the illicit connection, we can work with the resident and say, we'll help pay for that. And in the hopes that we just pay for the entirety of it. But we would partner with local plumbers, hopefully have a list of vendors that a resident could choose from. They make initial contact, and then the city would work with the plumber and the resident as we kind of solve the problem. So this is just really step one. Step two will hopefully be addressed once we have additional monies to start tackling spot repairs, or where we know where mains have completely failed, or manholes that have become disjointed over time have slid. Whatever the case is, we can start being proactive and tackling that. So that's really the premise of the policy before you, and I'll stand for any questions.
I think you answered my question, but whenever you guys identify the issue, let the property owner know that. I guess I didn't know if some people just didn't know, they like moved in and then.
Yes, we would let them know
Okay.
if we find those. So.
Okay.
I'm sure the sump pump ones are harder to find, but are you considering smoking the sewers again to see where infiltrates are coming through? Because I know there were a bunch found last time.
I agree, and that is something that I would like to bring back. So to start smoke testing, because that would also help identify where spot repairs are needed. So we, in the past, when I have asked about the smoke testing practice that we've had, that was really insightful for where smoke would just start billowing up from under the sidewalks or something like that.
Oh, there's sidewalks and
Right.
people's, I know for a fact we went to reported house fires because out of all 4 downspouts, smoke was boiling out of the roof, and it was the smoke from the sewers, so.
And there's a little bit of humor in it, but
Yeah.
it was also shared with me that fire would be on standby as they're smoke testing. There'd be a fire truck right there because I knew they'd have to take the call.
Well, we handled it. It was an eventful month or two. But it did show a lot of stuff that just came out of nowhere. People would report smoke coming out of the road or in their backyard or something. So it did do a lot of good.
And I agree, and that is something that we'll evaluate, trying to bring back as a practice of smoke testing. Additionally, and not fully vetted yet, but just as an idea, during construction projects, if we're able to replace the main and we notice that the sanitary sewer laterals that are tied in, if it's bad enough, we may replace either a portion or the run. Because by fixing that too, we'll also mitigate a lot of what's getting into the sanitary sewer system. So we're trying everything that we can reasonably afford to tackle this. And so it'd be money well spent to, the more we spend on this, is the less we'll spend on energy and additional chemicals at our plants.
Okay. Sounds like a plan.
Thank you.
Appearances to council not listed on the agenda. I believe there's two. Mr. Harris has been doing so much work tonight and talking a lot. Oh. Number one is Archie York from Missouri 811.
Mayor, good evening, city council members. I'd like to first off thank Enrico for inviting me out here. And thank you all for letting me speak here. I'm Art York with Missouri 811, formerly known as Missouri One Call. I actually just wanted to come out here to take the time to thank the city of Warrensburg for the efforts that are being done for damage prevention. Perry Hawks has been leading a really good bi-weekly meeting down here, and it's opening up that line of communication for everybody. And that, as we all know, communication is the downfall of a lot of problems, and keeping that flow of communication has really helped a lot of things. So I came down here to show recognition and ensure that that's being spread across the rest of state of Missouri, using Warrensburg as an example. So thank you.
Cool. Thank you very much. Is there anything else we can do better?
I don't have any critiques at the time, actually. Just keeping that
Because Enrico will do it.
I don't have any critiques by any means. Damage prevention is one of those things that's unfortunately, damage is inevitable, but getting ahead of it, it's the keywords is prevention, and Warrensburg's been doing a great job with that prevention. And that's bi-weekly meeting is preventing a lot of damage, and that's really hard to do. Some cities are slacking in it and stuff like that, and we see that with the Western half of Missouri. That's what I covered, but we are using Warrensburg as an example for other cities to get behind. So it's really awesome to see. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, miscellaneous matters from the mayor or council? Nope, sorry. Susan Latare. How can I forget you?
I have about a 45-minute speech I'd like to, no. Just kidding.
You said 4 to 5 minutes, not a problem.
I actually have one question and one offer of help / question. So a couple of years ago, I reached out to Cindy back in the day to ask her about the Stevenson Fund specifically, and kind of other the other charitable trust funds that the city holds that is private funds, as I understand. Because I was curious if there was a public application process for those funds, knowing that they are meant for very specific things and that there's not a endless pool of money there. But I know that many very, very deserving organizations have received funds from that. And this is not at all about any concern related to that, more about trying to open it up to more people and to see if it's possible to have that be a more public process about how an organization could apply for those funds that are specific for, I think, education and library and something else I don't remember. So that was my question. And
Right off the top, that answer is the lady sitting to my left. Has most of the information's on those funds, or the finance director.
yeah, but again, if it could be a public,
facing.
publicly made public that these funds are available and that they're specific things, I think there could be more organizations that could benefit from them.
What would be the process today?
At this point, we've done several, and they submit a letter of request, and then we bring it to council for approval. As long as it falls within the eligibility guidelines of the charitable
This
trust.
is like there's folks that know about it and they apply for it every year, which they well should. Absolutely. Again, no concern at all about the folks who have received that money, but it's sort of like, if you know, you know, but if you don't know, you don't know. And so
So just a little bit more,
I just like it to be more
a
public.
little more discovery on it to know what.
If it's appropriate. And again, I know these are private funds that the city holds, so there are probably rules and regs that I do not know about. So that's that. The other
Okay.
thing is about boards and commissions. So I mentioned Noe earlier, our new chair of the Diversity and Inclusion Commission, who was made chair on the very first night that he started on the commission, because all the rest of us are like, yeah. So bless his heart, he took that on, but it made it obvious to me that we as a board could have done a better job to support him as a new chair, but that also it'd be really great if there was some onboarding process, just some basics for especially chairs, but for really all board and commission members, knowing that every board and commission is different and has different goals and objectives, obviously, but this is something that's personally interesting and important to me, and I would love to offer my help if I could be helpful, because I've been on a lot of boards of all kinds, and I like to organize and, do that kind of stuff. So if
Careful what
if
you
it's-
ask for, so you may receive it.
I'd be-
We are actually working on a couple different things with boards and commissions right now. Myself and Jody and Danielle, and you were getting ready to say something else, Danielle? Oh, I thought you were. You were like. But yeah, I'll keep you in mind because I know that you're somebody that would be beneficial to us. But we're trying to do updates on boards, commissions.
I know it's like herding cats. I really do. It's a lot of people with a lot of very wide variety of terms and all of that. So, yeah.
Well, but there's things that we're doing that that you're not the first one to bring this up. It's something that we've worked on and we're going to continue to work on, at least I am. Because some of the stuff there's been boards and commissions that were established 20 years ago, and that's the last time they were touched, what their goals and objectives are. And over the last few years, I've been working on trying to get some of these more updated and focused on what the original thought was.
Thank you for that. And I appreciate it. So,
All right,
thank
we
you.
will talk about it.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Susie. Anything else from the council or? And now your turn, right? No, Director. Yeah, you,
Yeah, well,
you looked at me like, no.
sorry, I thought you had I thought there was additional action on the diversity
Oh.
inclusion committee.
Yes. Back in December, you asked me to step off of the inclusion
Yes.
and task force.
Yes.
Okay, we'll need to do that. Do we need to do it by motion or by paper or next one?
Well, we appoint by motion,
Okay,
so I would assume we'd have to remove that
Okay.
same way.
so I'm going to do.
Or,
So because he asked due to personal reasons. I'm going to, unless we have somebody else right away on council, I will cover that spot unless somebody else wants to do it for the time being. Because I know in April, we'll have a big change of who's on, depending who's what, where and when. And we have some new lady back there that she's got to have a job or two going on in the future. So if nobody else wants to step in for Carl, I will take care of it until things go well.
I think we assumed that Eddie was our.
Yeah. You are?
Yeah, he's been,
I thought you were.
I was, but he's been filling in.
Okay, we just need to do that officially. Okay,
okay,
all right, thank you, Eddie.
Yeah.
That was just me. I misunderstood you probably.
I'll prepare that for
Eddie?
the next meeting.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
So I'll do that next meeting.
Yes, thank
Prepare
you
that.
very much.
Okay.
Sorry about that, everybody.
Thank
I
you.
thought. Now, the city manager's report
Speaking.
and everybody else.
Marcel, did you have a director's report, finance report you want to share?
Maybe, maybe not.
Maybe you want to add.
It is in the packet. Listen to me talk a lot tonight, seems like. Before you this evening is a recap of the revenues that we have collected through the month of January that had been posted at the time that the reports were put together. So I'm happy to report that so far, sales tax revenue is continuing to grow. I can tell you that our receipts that we received last week for the 1st of February from the state was basically flat. And so that's, again, is just a small indicator of where things might be turning. We don't want things to turn downward. If they stay the same, we'll be okay. But that's also, just a word of caution, that going forward, we'll watch those very carefully to see how they continue, to go forward. But other than that, we're coming in at budget, a little over budget, and so hopefully sales tax revenue will turn back around. A lot of it's in the timing. Those are always the dynamics on when the businesses submit that money to the state and the state turn it around to get it sent to us when it's the end of quarter, so that, most of the businesses or a lot of the business choose not to actually mail them until July or January 31st. So to turn that around in a 4-day window is kind of a challenge for the state. So we'll see what happens in March, but right now everything looks good and hopefully it will continue to be that way. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
So flat isn't bad.
That's not bad. No, it's not a bad thing at all. Just a word of caution. Thank you.
What a catch.
Do any of the directors have anything they would like to share? Go.
In the packet, I included our year-to-date statistics. I just wanted to point out one piece of that. To date, we're seeing quite a bit more overlapping calls trends. So already this year, we're up to about 18%, it's only around 9%. So those are calls occurring at the same time. So just something I'd like to point out, just to kind of keep an eye on. Something that I watch a lot in a lot of our discussions on where future growth is needed to make sure that those services are maintained. 28 seems like a somewhat small number, but that was 28 times that we're kind of in the wind and hoping there wasn't a whole lot else going on. So
Has that continued to increase? Because that was the one I was tracking to for the last several years and it was on a steady increase.
yeah, it had remained pretty steady there for a while, but we started seeing last year, for whatever reason, everything seems to happen at once. It's just, we're still averaging about 4.5 calls a day to date, but it's just really busy timeframes when they happen. So continue to watch that, but it is trending.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just a few updates. So we will be getting fiber to the street barn in WPC. And good news that once we're off of Spectrum, we should save around $100 a month. So that's good. We've been working with the chamber to replace some of their doors so they're electronically accessible via key fob. And so it'd be the Jackmore room, the 2 depot doors and the main door. Part of that too will free up additional staffing resources. So PD or at least members of the PD go and lock the doors at night and at least double check. So now that they'll be electronically accessible, Suzanne, for example, will be able to lock the doors from her phone. So that will free up a lot of our scarce resources, at least on that front. We've also been working with the Big Brothers and Big Sisters to replace their dilapidated driveway and the sidewalk that abuts their property. So I kind of have a rough plan of how to address it, but I haven't shared it with the park board yet. So at the park board meeting, we'll be able to go into a little more detail. And then this is a cemetery item, but operationally, we spend a lot of money on the cemetery. And a lot of it is through the maintenance of mowing, weed whacking, things like that, that we do not have the labor or the materials to perform ourselves. And so there is one thought to do a controlled kill out in a specific part of the cemetery and replace the fescue with zoysia. And so the reason for that is that it requires very little water to be established, and that once established, it's very tolerant to the cold. And it grows very slowly. And so what we're seeing is that, at least from the market standpoint, we would have several contractors bid to want to have that account. Well, over time, it's been say 4 to now 1. And so with that just 1, then they ratchet up the price. And so we pay what they want versus what the open competition will say if they had to compete with someone else. And so the thought would be that if we have grass that needs to be mowed less frequently, that would also save on the contract. And then we're also looking into, it's an annual contract. And what would it look like if we went from 1 to 2 years or 3 years? So that way a contractor knows that they're locked in for just longer than a year. Perhaps we'll bring back bidders, knowing that, well, at least I know that I'll have this for an extended period of time. So it's just playing with the ideas to try to save costs at the cemetery. But also trying to, keep a lot of the integrity and natural beauty that it has already. So that's kind of the public works items that I have. So thank you.
Chris, anything else?
There was
Or
a
do you?
question, there was a question, at the last, city council meeting that we had regarding the 3% sales tax on marijuana. We did receive notice from the Department of Revenue, that the county tax will not stack on to the municipal tax. Oh, I'm sorry.
And they've just reversed themselves
Oh,
as of Friday.
okay.
So now their answer is, don't know.
Oh, okay. I rescind my update. I will cover my legal counsel before I open my mouth next time.
Like, I hadn't seen any.
Sorry, I should have forwarded that. I just got that from a colleague midday on Friday.
Okay.
That position that they had taken, a bunch of people were jumping up and down on them, and they were looking at the language, which had figured out a recurring theme that there's some drafting issues with that.
No.
They've now thrown their hands up and said, we don't know.
Yeah,
Okay.
We'll figure it out in October next year.
We'll figure out when it's time to, right?
But I mean, from our standpoint, it's either protected within the municipality as a municipal tax, or it's stackable. But I don't think there's an interpretation where the county tax could displace the municipal tax.
So anyway, there was a question about that, so I thought I had an answer for.
So whenever it's stackable, would it be like 1.5 and 1.5, or would it be 3 and 3?
3 and 3.
or- Okay.
So each entity is authorized to place up to 3 on the ballot, so it could be anything less than that.
Okay.
But it would be on.
Okay.
That update with HR, Katie Taylor, started as our new human resources assistant. She has already done a lot of great things as far as improving our process, as far as getting out background checks, drug screening, a lot of that onboarding paperwork. So very excited to have Katie Taylor on board. We did hire that human resource specialist position, and Stephen Zendehoff, and he will begin, his start date is to be March 20th. So we are very excited to get those up and running at full capacity soon. I do want to express thank you to the department directors for their patience as I have been taking on that interim human resources director role. They have been very patient with me and with human resources in general. And so just a big thank you to them, and especially to Jody Schneider, who has stepped up and helped me with several packet memos for this particular agenda. So thank you, Jody, for that help, I would say. Other than that, we did have our request for qualifications on the McGuire Street corridor. That is out on the city's website, and we have already gotten lots of requests for additional information from engineers who are interested in bidding on that project. So we are very excited to get that project off the ground and up and going. We are very busy at City Hall.
Okay. You have more, Marcy?
I don't,
You don't?
oh, I do, but.
Anything else, ma'am?
That's all I have this evening.
We will adjourn. Adjourn.